We will start off with the things that you were talking about in your article about the legalization of marijuana and why you, and should I say you and your department or just you, or do you speak for all the members of your department?
Well, we just finished, and what the article was about, we just finished a statewide initiative where we were successful in defeating a proposition, an initiative that would have legalized marijuana. And at the time of this campaign, of the political campaign, I was a spokesperson. I spoke in my capacity as chief of police. I was also a spokesperson for the campaign against Proposition 19. I was also a spokesperson for the California Police Chiefs Organization, which represents all chiefs of police in California. That's what the article was written about, was just the recent success that we had in defeating Proposition 19. However, in my capacity as chief of police, I am opposed to legalized marijuana.
So now Proposition 19 didn't pass, obviously. What are the reactions now afterwards among the people in your part of the world?
Well, the people who did not want legalized marijuana obviously are happy, because Proposition 19 was a proposition that would have legalized marijuana in California. Many states, I think it's about 15 or 20 states, already have medical marijuana. Proposition 19 was a wholesale legalization of marijuana. We already have medical marijuana. Proposition 19 would have legalized it. We would have been the only state in the country with legalized marijuana. And that's why, especially in the last couple of weeks of the campaign, Proposition 19 drew international interest in the battle that we are having. So I would say that the people who wanted legalized marijuana, their position is, we're going to try it again in 2 years at the next election in 2012. The people that are opposed to it, and that's what I was trying to capitalize with the article, was I think there was a very strong statement made by the California voters, and that was exactly as I said, not here, not now, not ever. Because it wasn't a close call. It was a double-digit defeat for the voters in California.
Now, the opposition to Proposition 19 and the organization that was built to oppose it, will that continue, or are you sort of sitting back now and relaxing a bit?
No. I think, we will continue to educate people. I think what was on our side on our battle against Proposition 19 were the facts. The facts clearly support that we do not want legalized marijuana. On top of that, something that I know is not really of interest to the international community, Proposition 19 was extremely poorly written. But even if you take out the problems with how Proposition 19 was written, the facts are on our side. It is not good for our society, it is not good for our economy, and it is not good for our children.
What about your city and the so-called medical marijuana? Do you have any facilities for that in Fontana?
No, we do not. The city has taken a position where we do not allow any medical marijuana dispensaries of any type.
And what about the other counties surrounding you? Are they trying to influence you to change your mind, or they accept it with regret, or what?
No, I would say that the majority of the San Bernardino, the city of Fontana is in the county of San Bernardino, and we're part of an area we call the Inland Empire, which probably is about 40 or 50 cities in the whole Inland Empire, which is San Bernardino and Riverside County. The majority of the cities in this area have taken a similar position where they are banning medical marijuana dispensaries.
So public support for this in your city isn't very big?
Well, I think the public support in the Inland Empire is big because And that's one of the things that I in the article, the 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 voters of the Inland Empire, which is both San Bernardino and Riverside County, I think they had it at about a 14% deficit as far as the election on Proposition 19. In other words, the people who opposed 19, there was 14% more voters opposed to 19 than were in support of it. Now, this was higher than the state average. So the Inland Empire area has taken even a stronger position in opposition to legalized marijuana than the rest of the state.
So what about enforcement then of the marijuana laws in your district? I mean, if you would encounter somebody with, let's say, 10 or 15 grams marijuana, what would be the consequences of that?
They get a ticket. And you bring up a very interesting point, because one of the strongest arguments in support of legalized marijuana was that we are spending too much time dealing with marijuana. So if we legalize marijuana, we free up all this time for our officers so they can go out and, as they would tell you, arrest real criminals. Right now, the way the laws are as far as personal possession of marijuana, like you said, 15, 17 grams, in the neighborhood of an ounce or less around that area, right now in California, they get a ticket. They don't even get arrested. They get a ticket. And so what that means is if you're driving on our freeways and you're doing 80 miles an hour when you're only supposed to be doing 65 miles an hour, the ticket that you're going to get for speeding on the freeway is going to be more expensive than the ticket that you get for personal possession of marijuana. So right now, there is not a whole lot of effort, there is not a whole lot of enforcement that is going into personal possession of marijuana. So if you legalize marijuana, it's not that you're freeing up a lot of time, because we're not spending a lot of time on personal possession. Our narcotics officers in this agency have been involved just in the last few months, arrests of marijuana in the neighborhood of a couple thousand pounds. And so that is not going to change. Actually, if anything, legalized marijuana just in California would increase it, would increase our involvement with illegal drug dealers who are dealing in tons, who are dealing in 1,000-pound increments of it, because if you legalize marijuana in California, you lower the price. Well, it's not legal in the other 49 states. We're going to have the cheapest marijuana around. Where do you think the criminals are going to come to get their marijuana now? We're not getting rid of criminal activity by legalizing. We're inviting criminal activity into California. And so when you talk about the actions or the time that California law enforcement officers spend on marijuana, you wouldn't be freeing up any time if you legalize marijuana, because we're not spending that much time on dealing with personal possession. We give somebody a ticket. That's all that's being done with personal possession of marijuana. We will still be dealing with illegal drug dealers who deal in 1,000-pound increments of marijuana.
What about the politicians then? Would you say that they are educated enough to make to probably understand the problem and make the correct decisions?
Yes and no. Politicians are always a representative of the electorate that they represent, and that's why they are voted by their elected. I will tell you that most recently, I'm not sure how familiar you are with our political system in California, but there's two ways essentially to get a law through. One is to have the legislature, the Senate, the Assembly pass it, and then the governor signs it, and it is a law. And the other way is what we had with Proposition 19, which voters take up enough signatures and get it put on the ballot, and then the general population votes on it. Proposition 19 was a voter initiative. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars collecting enough signatures to get it on the November ballot, and then all of the people who vote in California voted on it in November. The other way that it could have happened is through the legislature. Now, the same time that Proposition 19 was starting up, there were also two different bills to legalize it through the legislature. And so we did have a group of politicians which was trying to do the same thing in California that Proposition 19 was doing. Those bills that were making their way through the Assembly and the Senate failed. They never made it out of the Assembly. They never made it out of the Senate. And the governor never had a chance to sign it or veto it. So There are some politicians that would like to have legalized marijuana, and I think the reason that they're doing that is because their electorate that they represent require that of them.
Mm.
But whether they're properly educated, I can't tell you that, other than at this last election, it was Assembly Bill 2254 that was making its way through the Assembly, and it failed. It never made it out of a subcommittee. And so we'll just have to wait and see if they try the same thing. When medical marijuana first came out, there were 2 or 3 attempts back in the early 90s, late 80s, to try to get the legislature to pass a bill for medical marijuana. It failed 3 different times. It wasn't till several private investors came in and donated $10 million to get it qualified for initiative, and they did it through a voter initiative. The reason we have medical marijuana is because of a voter initiative, not because the legislature enacted. The legislature tried 3 different times, and it failed all 3 times.
Mm. And now next, we have the midterm elections now, and the next 2012 is the next
Correct.
time when election is up. So what other prospects for the future do you think when it comes to legalization of marijuana, if we look 2 years ahead of us? Is that possible?
Absolutely, it's possible. There are some advocates for Proposition 19. The day that the election results came out and Proposition 19 failed, their position was wait till 2012. And my whole position and the California Chiefs of Police position has always been, we want to educate people so when they vote, they can vote intelligently. And like I said, the facts against legalized marijuana are on our side. So it is our duty, it is our obligation to make sure our community votes intelligently. We can't really control how people vote, but what we can control is that we give them the information so they can vote intelligently, because there is a lot of misinformation about Proposition 19. These people that tell you that marijuana is not dangerous, and it's not true. These people that tell you that it does not addict our children to drugs, that it is not a gateway drug, that information is not true. These people that tell you that marijuana and legalized drugs do not hurt our economy, that is not true. And so the facts are on our side. It is our obligation to educate the community we serve so they can vote intelligently.
Well, thank you very much. And to our listeners, you've listened to Rodney G. Jones, who is Chief of Police in Fontana, California, in the United States. Thank you very much.